They said to read this manga if you dare. Naturally, I did the only reasonable thing and read as much as I could stomach for the next 2.5 days straight. Honestly, what the heck did I even just read? I liken this experience to what I can only assume it feels like when pouring bleach in your eyes while listening to a 5-year-old learning from Mozart for 5 hours a day. Like, really, what was the author doing while making this manga? All jokes aside, and I can't really say that I'm joking at all, but I truthfully wasn't prepared to witness what I have now seen. Please, pretty please, do not start your day off with this. Better yet, I would advise you spend your time doing something a little better for your mental health, like, I don't know, swimming or reading Attack on Titan. Leagues better, I swear. First off, the story of Jujuku no Rokunin, aka Cross of the Six People, is kind of bonkers. And by kinda, I mean a lot bonkers, okay? First chapter was intriguing, I admit. I was prepared for a good revenge story, but what I got felt kinda cheesy and unrealistic. And I'm all for unrealistic, but when I mean unrealistic, I'm like, okay, this is kind of wild. This is like, it feels like a 14-year-old edgelord's Reddit posts. And I'm all for unrealistic, like I said, but you know, if you're gonna read something with this level of violence and torture, like, there better be a good enough reason for it. The story's about a boy who was labeled as Experiment A by like 5 of his classmates and basically tortured throughout 6th grade. The boy, Shun Uruma, determined to put on a tough face for his adorable younger brother and dealt with the bullying, but the bullies then killed his parents. The same accident put his younger brother in a coma. This left Uruma with nobody but his grandfather, who also just happens to be a World War II veteran. Just casually a World War II veteran. He's determined to get back at his enemies, naturally, so he begs his grandfather to guide him through the path of vengeance. 4 years later, Irma completes his intense training and embarks on a brutal journey of torture and retribution to hunt down the 5 monsters who made his school life a living hell. Interestingly enough, that the premise of the story is actually rather intriguing. You know what I mean? For a simple revenge story set in like a modern time, I kind of was interested. In first 5 chapters were definitely, you know, like going down that path. His grandfather gives him one rule in addition to teaching him the ways to kill, and that's you have to give them a chance to change, as this is what separates human from beast, the ability to change and show mercy. So this all did seem like a pretty good setup, right? I felt like it didn't follow through though with anything more meaningful than that. So while it was a dope premise, the plot just kept getting weird. And this is exemplified whenever the villains of the series are present. Like, these little monsters are murderers, arsonists, rapists, torturers. They do just about everything you can think of. And they're like 15 or 16 years old. There's too much random-ish that pops up to explain all of these inconsistencies. But on a base level, like, why are people just letting them get away with this stuff? Like, they're at school breaking people's bones, and like no one ever got caught whatsoever. I get it, we need a story, but while it did make kind of sense at first, you know what I mean, the main character purposefully never told the police because he wanted to exact his own revenge on them himself, but like at a point you realize he's not their only target. Over the years, I find it very hard to believe a bunch of high schoolers have been just doing all this under the radar. There was one chapter where like it explicitly stated this guy Kuga, one of the bullies, had been brutally beating everyone in the martial arts club. He's randomly seen like betting on people's fingers for card games, and by betting I mean he just like snaps the mugs back if they lose. He's every girl that was a part of the judo club, and like, yo, this has just been happening and nobody found out until like 4 years later. This guy comes and he's like, oh, I gotta get revenge. But either way, hey, all I'm saying, what does the teacher think? They walk in, they're like, oh, no can do. I can't write today. Our fingers have evolved into geckos. I get it. It's a gory revenge story. I'm cool with that. I read 60 chapters. Regardless of size, I think that's enough to kind of see the picture. And you already know my favorite manga is Tokyo Ghoul. That series is no walk in the sunshine. I tend to like the darker side of fiction, and I genuinely find seinen and more adult manga very enjoyable. But there were some parts of this that I was like, whoa, hold up, I'm cringing inside. Like, something about the way characters were written in this series really ticked me off, though. I had to genuinely ask myself, like, is the time I've spent and given this series worth it? Is this the worst manga out there? Not nearly. Not even close. The story is just... it's not my cup of tea. And in all fairness, one doesn't necessarily need a good story for a manga to be enjoyable. I don't really think people read these type of manga for the story. One Redditor commented on the series, when you compare it to some of the masterpieces that are dominating gore manga at the moment, like Chainsaw Man, Jujutsu Kaisen, arguably Hell's Paradise, it's obvious that Jujuku no Rokunin is not really... It doesn't hold a spot. Surely because of popularity, but it also makes absolute no sense. And I pretty much agree with that. Like I said, the manga crazy, yo. Personally, I don't think a lot of people read it for story at all. Mostly just for the ride and see what messed up happens next. And yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I think that's kind of what a lot of the fan base is. You know, they're not really looking for some drama, you know, long-running, character-driven story, blah, blah, blah nonsense. It's really to see, like, how he's gonna get back at these four guys for everything they're doing in the series. But because of that, it just kind of loses itself, like, halfway through. Like, I still feel like you need a somewhat balance between, like, this grimy, gory, like, torture sequences, and then the next chapter, like, these girls are just idiotic, putting themselves in these random predicaments where he needs to come and, like, save them, or they end up dying, or worse, and I'm like... yeah, you know, either everybody has a screw loose or like nobody has a screw loose and this whole thing is just dumb. Anyways, that's pretty much about it for this one. I mean, it's satisfying to see these little monsters get off in the most painful way imaginable. And if you find that repetitively creative cycle of torturing people entertaining, then, well, go ahead. Will I get back to reading it? To be honest, I don't even know. Most likely not. Actually, no, I don't think so. I'm definitely taking a break for now, and I have a lot more on my plate. Gotta get them videos out, but I am still interested for some strange reason. I think that, you know, really catches a lot of people, because for some strange reason, you're still interested. And it's the story cycle of what happens next, and that's a hard desire to quench. Alright, bye.